Welcome to my talk today. I want to start with a short question. Who of you uses multi-factor authentication? Raise your hands. Yeah, that looks great. And have you ever heard about privacyIDEA before? Anyone? Oh yeah, there's a few, okay. That's nice. So I would like to introduce our software privacyIDEA today and our approach of hybrid multi-factor authentication. Maybe you was wondering about this term, hybrid authentication. What it just means in this context of this talk today is that we want to secure on-premise applications as well as cloud systems. Yeah, but before we start to dive into the topic, let me shortly introduce myself. I'm Jelina. I'm a full-stack developer at the privacyIDEA project, where we are using Python for the back end and Angular and TypeScript for the front end. I brought my GitHub contribution profile from our main GitHub repository. As it indicates, privacyIDEA exists already since 2014, and I've started contributing on it 2 years ago, working on the project in full time. Okay, let's start. So privacyIDEA is a multi-factor authentication system with which you can secure many different applications. So for example, you can connect it to Keycloak, you can secure your desktop logins, your VPN, and many more, and then centrally manage your tokens and authentications in privacyIDEA. The vision behind it is to help users to maintain control over their logins and get rid of proprietary software. That's why it is open source, of course, again, otherwise it would not be here. And the code is hosted on GitHub. privacyIDEA is designed for versatility and flexibility, providing different configuration options to fulfill a wide spectrum of system requirements. To name the main sections, we provide different token types, which you can use as your second factors. Having policies to configure the system behavior, event handlers, where you can link additional actions to a specific request. So for example, you can send user notification with it, and providing user resolvers to get your users from different sources. Let's have a short look into some of these sections a bit more in detail. Starting with the token types. As you already said that I guess all of you are using MFA. Which token types do you use? Which ones do you know? Anyone? What are your second factors? Or do you not know which are your second factors? TOTP, yeah, right. Something different? Yeah? Yeah, great. Yeah, I also listed a few. There are many more token types privacyIDEA provide. Yeah, starting with some old school token types where your OTP values are sent by email or SMS. Then, as you already said, we're providing also TOTP and also HOTP. You can also use certificates. And then some more modern approaches with the push token, where the user is just receiving a notification on their smartphone in the privacyIDEA Authenticator app and just needs to confirm the logins, and also, of course, the latest standards with passkeys. Yeah, policies in privacyIDEA are used to configure the system behavior. This includes some classical role-based access management, so to configure what are users and admins allowed to do within privacyIDEA. But you can also configure the token enrollment behavior there. An example is if you would like to have a verification step after the enrollment to ensure that the token was successfully enrolled, then the user needs to enter the first valid OTP value there. You also can configure the authentication flow. A very commonly used example is there that you can enroll a new token during an authentication request, which might be very handy for seamless migrations from one token type to another. So if you actually have OTP tokens but you want to migrate to passkey, then you can configure this also there. And finally, providing some customization settings. So maybe the text that is shown to the users during the authentication. As privacyIDEA is no identity providers, users are received from external resources, and for this we provide different protocols. This includes LDAP to get users from an Active Directory, SQL to get them from an external database, or also HTTP to get them from an external API. Besides the flexibility, privacyIDEA, the reason behind privacyIDEA is to empower users to retain autonomy and control over their system and data. And we believe that we can achieve this best with an on-premise system due to the advantage that on-premise provides, which includes, first of all, having control over your whole system, including the hardware, the software, where to update any service flows. And with this, you also have control over the availability of your system. Since your data is stored locally in your network, usually you can also better ensure data privacy and security. Which brings us already to the next advantage of reducing the attack surface by using air-gapped networks to isolate your system, either completely or partially from the internet. And finally, you do not depend on any third-party cloud providers. All these aspects are very important for organizations or companies from the critical infrastructure, which include sectors of energy, healthcare, information technology, government, public service, defense, and so on, because any failure or outage of their system can lead to restrictions of public life. And that's why many countries, they have special legal requirements, and they most often point on these aspects. So they need to ensure the availability, they have special data privacy requirements, and it's very common that they have air-gapped networks. So an on-premise solution is most often the best choice for these sectors. Now you might ask then, why do we need a hybrid authentication system? Well, as that often, it is not just black or white. So imagine you have mainly on-premise infrastructure, but then you want to integrate a new application, replace an existing one, and this new service may be just available as a cloud service. Or you deliberately decide to use a cloud service because you want to take advantages of those cloud benefits, like using the high scalability and flexibility, less resource requirements, and so on. Then you would like to be able to integrate this cloud service in the authentication system that you already use for your on-premise infrastructure and don't need to set up this separately. This also holds for the other way around. So if you're having a main cloud environment, you might, as most often, face the problem that some of your applications cannot be integrated in the cloud, which is very common, for example, for VPNs still using the Radius protocol, or also if you have any custom software. And finally, if you're planning to move either from an on-premise environment to the cloud or the way back, then you might have some transitioning states, and for this a hybrid authentication system is also very helpful to secure all of these applications centrally. So to keep privacyIDEA versatile, we also need to be able to integrate both. And why this came up recently to us is that we noticed an increasing interest of integrating privacyIDEA with Entra ID, which is an identity provider and access management from Microsoft, which is a cloud system, but can also be used in a hybrid setup where users are still synchronized from local Active Directory. And I would like to show you exemplary our development process of this integration, which can be divided into two main steps. First of all, we had to implement a user resolver so that we can get the users out of Entra ID into privacyIDEA to be able to assign tokens to the users, so to set up the second factor for them. And then finally, integrate privacyIDEA into the authentication flow of Entra ID. So let's start with the user resolver. For this, Entra ID provides a graph API for this user management, so we could implement a resolver with this according API request. Generally, the functionality a user resolver should provide in privacyIDEA is, first of all, listing all the users, also be able to filter for users, getting single users during the authentication, and then secondly, it should provide the full authentication flow to be able to check the user's password. Optionally, we also provide the possibility to create, edit, and delete users, which might be helpful if you want to do some small stuff, but as we are not a user store, these might be a bit limited, so we are mainly focusing on these, getting the users, checking the passwords. Okay, so coming to the integration, to the authentication flow, this highly depends on the possibilities that Entra ID gives us to get into it, and what they recently introduced is something they call external MFA method using the OpenID Connect protocol. We also identify the second option. If you are having a hybrid Entra ID setup where users are still synchronized with a local Active Directory, we can also use the Active Directory federation system to get into the authentication flow. Let's have a look into these flows, starting with the external MFA method. As privacyIDEA is no identity provider, we can use Keycloak instead, which is also an open source project. And for this one, we also already had privacyIDEA integration, and then Keycloak can handle the OpenID Connect responses with Entra ID. In this setup, it is just required that the users are not only present in Entra ID and privacyIDEA, but also to be within Keycloak. Then regarding the authentication flow, we are starting at Entra ID. I think I also have this pointer here, right? Okay, no. Anyway, so we're starting at Entra ID, where the user needs always to handle this primary authentication, so usually entering username and password. This is enforced by Entra ID, so we can only do the second factor step. Afterwards, the user is redirected to Keycloak, where the user submits a second factor, and then privacyIDEA will check these authentications and an according response back to Keycloak, which will then convert it back into an OpenID Connect response. And we have additionally added there a protocol mapper to make these response be accepted by Entra ID. And then the user is hopefully successfully authenticated. Then moving on to the second option, the integration using the Active Directory federation system. Here the authentication again starts at Entra ID, where the user needs to enter its username, and then will be redirected to the Active Directory federation system, which then handles the remaining authentication, entering first and second factor, and then privacyIDEA can verify this authentication, and finally they will be redirected back to Entra ID. So concluding, you can secure cloud systems as well as on-premise applications with privacyIDEA as a single multi-factor authentication system, having your authentications and token management centralized within one application. With it, you can retain control over your logins and stay flexible. if you would like to learn more, we're also having a booth out there. Just come around, having a nice chat with my kind colleague or me. You can also visit our GitHub page or project page. And yeah, of course, you can also ask your questions now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thanks for your talk. In the different options you described before, I'm curious to understand why you would want to involve privacy ID here. Why wouldn't you implement the multi-factor in either Entra directly or perhaps in Keycloak? So that is one part of the question, and then I'm curious to know how you can integrate this for providing authentication. If you don't have Keycloak or something like that, then I want to protect my applications. What integration options do you have, or which protocols or flows are supported?
Yeah, regarding the first question, since we are, so the main reason might be that you cannot secure all your applications with Entra ID, for example, or Keycloak, because sometimes if you're having any custom software, or I think also VPNs are sometimes not possible to include, you have privacyIDEA, which can cover that all and have this centralized within one system. And another reason might be that we are focusing only on this authentication aspect, or this multi-factor authentication aspect, and hence you're having a wide set of configuration options. So, of course, also Entra ID provides a second factor, also Keycloak provides this, but you're having more options how you want to have, for how your authentication flow should look like. So, yeah, being more flexible in the options that you have. Regarding your second question, we provide different other integrations. So Keycloak is, I think, the most commonly used one, but we also have for the credential provider, PAM module to secure your desktop logins. There are many more. So if you want to have them all on the list, you have a flyer at our booth. And most commonly Keycloak is just used because usually people are already having it as their identity provider and connecting other applications to this. That's why I think it's the most common one. But of course, you could also implement your own integration and doing the requests directly to our API if you have something really special that are not covered by the options that we provide.
Any more questions? Then I would like to thank you, Jelina.
Thank you.